Jimmy learned very early that some love stories do not begin with conversations. Some begin with distance, with watching, with waiting, with swallowing words until they become habits. At St. Maxwell's College, one of the most elite secondary schools in Lagos, Jimmy learned how to love a girl without ever speaking to her, and how silence, when repeated long enough, could become regret. St. Maxwell's College sat behind tall iron gates and manicured hedges, a quiet monument to privilege and ambition. From the outside, it looked like a private estate. From the inside, it felt like a world where confidence mattered more than kindness. The buildings were modern and tall, glass reflecting the Lagos sun. The lawns were trimmed weekly. The classrooms were air-conditioned, equipped with smart boards and imported desks. Every morning, students flooded the compound dressed in the school's signature uniform. White short-sleeve button shirts, neatly pressed khaki skirts for the girls, khaki trousers for the boys, white knee-high socks, and polished black shoes. The uniform was meant to make everyone equal, but it never really did. Some students arrived in luxury SUVs, drivers opening doors for them. Some carried phones that cost more than a teacher's monthly salary. Some walked with the careless confidence of children who had never been told no. Jimmy walked in quietly. He always arrived early, his backpack secured tightly on his shoulders, his shoes freshly polished the night before. His uniform was clean and neat, but never flashy. His khaki trousers were slightly faded from frequent washing. His white shirt was ironed perfectly, but old. Jimmy existed in the middle of St. Maxwell's, not poor, not rich, just present. And for a long time, that was enough. Until Kendra arrived. Jimmy first noticed Kendra during their SS1 assembly. The sun was already high, the students restless as the principal spoke. Jimmy stood in line with the other boys, half listening, half drifting in thought. Then someone laughed behind him. He turned. Kendra stood among the girls a few rows back, her head slightly tilted as she spoke to one of her friends. Her long braids were neatly packed, thick and glossy, falling straight down her back. Not the trendy baddie braids she would wear years later, but still, striking in their neatness. She wasn't loud. She didn't command attention. She simply existed with an ease that made the noise around her feel unnecessary. Jimmy felt something shift in his chest. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't obsession. It was awareness. From that morning, his routine changed without him consciously deciding it. He started arriving school even earlier just to see her walk through the gate. He memorized where she sat during long assemblies. He noticed the way she always listened more than she spoke. And slowly, quietly, Jimmy fell in love. Kendra was in his class. She sat 2 rows ahead of him, usually near the window. Jimmy chose his seat carefully, close enough to see her, far enough not to draw attention. In class, she took notes carefully. Her handwriting was neat. She raised her hand when she had questions, not to show off, but because she genuinely wanted to understand. Girls like Gina often surrounded her. Gina was everything Jimmy wasn't. She was confident, outspoken, and fashionable. Her hair was always perfectly styled, her accessories expensive. Her laughter carried across the classroom. Boys in school noticed Kendra too. Some flirted openly with her. Some passed notes to her. Some joked loudly, hoping she would laugh at their jokes. Jimmy watched all of it. He watched other boys approach her with ease. He watched her respond to them politely, sometimes warmly. He told himself that she belonged to that world, the world of confidence and boldness. And he did not. Every time he thought of approaching her, his mind sabotaged him. What if she thinks I'm boring? What if she doesn't even know my name? What if I embarrass myself? So he stayed quiet. There were moments that felt like tests. One afternoon in the library, Jimmy was studying alone when Kendra sat 2 seats away from him. The library room was quiet, the hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. Her perfume drifted gently. Jimmy's heart began to race. She leaned forward to pick a book, her braids brushing lightly against the back of her chair. Then she looked up. Their eyes met. For a brief second, the world narrowed. She smiled. It was not dramatic, just soft, just kind. But Jimmy froze. He didn't smile back. He didn't speak. He didn't move. And she returned to her book. That night, Jimmy lay awake, replaying the moment over and over, his regret heavier than his fear. Another time, during their class group work, she asked him a question. Jimmy, do you understand this part? She knew his name. His throat tightened. Yeah, he said quickly. I mean, yes. She nodded, thanked him, and turned away. He hated himself for how small his voice sounded. What Jimmy didn't know was that Kendra noticed him too. She noticed how he always paid attention in class, how he never laughed at others, how he always held doors open quietly for others to pass. She noticed the way he looked at her sometimes, quick glances, quickly hidden. She wondered why he never spoke to her. But time in secondary school moved fast, and confidence rarely waited for silence. Graduation day arrived wrapped in excitement and noise. Parents filled the school hall, dressed in lace and suits. Cameras flashed from all angles. Teachers smiled proudly. The students wore their white shirts and khaki uniforms for the final time. Jimmy watched Kendra walk across the stage to receive her certificate. Her braids were styled differently now. They were longer, fuller, and more confident. She smiled brightly, while her parents cheered loudly. This is it, Jimmy told himself. This is the last day. After the ceremony, he followed her outside, his heart pounding so loudly he felt dizzy. She stood with her parents, laughing and taking pictures. Then, a black SUV pulled up. The door opened. She hugged her parents, waved at her friends, and stepped inside. The door closed almost immediately, and the car drove away. Jimmy stood still. 6 years of words remained trapped inside him. After graduation, life moved on. University life came, with new faces and new routines, but some silences lingered. At night, Jimmy often thought of her, not in pain, but in quiet wondering. What if I had spoken to her? What if I had asked her to be friends with me? He learned something important during those years. That courage delayed too long often arrives as regret. University life swallowed Jimmy quickly. New campus, new faces, new routines. He studied hard, worked harder, and learned how to exist in spaces where no one knew him as the quiet boy from secondary school, away from St. Maxwell's. He discovered something surprising about himself. He wasn't shy. He had just been afraid of wanting something too much. Jimmy grew into his confidence slowly, like a plant stretching towards sunlight it had never known. He spoke more. He dressed better. He learned how to hold conversations without shrinking himself. But Kendra remained a quiet presence in his mind. Not painfully, not obsessively, just unfinished. 3 years after graduation, an email arrived in his inbox. It was from St. Maxwell's College for their 3 years alumni reunion. Jimmy stared at the screen longer than he should have. He knew exactly why his heart was beating faster. He told himself not to expect anything, that people changed, that she might not even remember him. Still, he prepared carefully. The reunion was held at a luxury hotel in Victoria Island, with glass walls, soft lighting, and live band music floating through the hall. Jimmy wore a tailored navy suit, with clean lines, a pair of expensive shoes, and a watch that spoke quietly of taste, not excess. When he arrived, the hall buzzed with laughter. Faces from the past greeted him. But the one very important face he searched for wasn't there. An hour passed. Then two. Jimmy tried to enjoy conversations with his old classmates. He smiled when required, and laughed when appropriate. But his eyes kept drifting to the entrance. Finally, someone said it casually. Oh, Kendra won't be coming, oh? She traveled. She's schooling abroad. Jimmy nodded. Figures, he said softly. He stayed a little longer. Then, he left the gathering early. That night, sitting alone in his apartment, Jimmy finally accepted something painful. Maybe that chapter was truly closed. Life did not pause for disappointment. Jimmy's career progressed. He traveled a lot. He dated other girls casually. He learned how to love himself without waiting for someone else to validate him. But something remained unresolved. Not longing, but curiosity. Then, 2 years later, another invitation arrived. It was St. Maxwell's College 5 years alumni reunion. Jimmy hesitated, then smiled. All right, he whispered. Let's try one last time. The second reunion was grander, with a bigger venue, more luxury, and more confident guests. Jimmy arrived relaxed this time, no expectations weighing on his shoulders. Then the room began to sparkle. The doors opened, and Kendra walked in. Time slowed down. Everything was in slow motion. She wore a fitted emerald gown that hugged her perfectly. Her long batty braids flowed freely down her back, thick, glossy, and bold. Her makeup was flawless but tasteful. Her gold accessories caught the light with every step. She wasn't just beautiful. She was elegant, confident, and powerful. Jimmy felt his chest tighten, but he didn't freeze. For the first time in his life, he didn't hesitate. He stood up from his chair and walked towards her. Kendra, he called out calmly. She turned. Yes, I'm Jimmy. We were in the same class at St. Maxwell's. Her eyes widened. Then she smiled. I know, she said softly. You sat behind me in chemistry. Something inside Jimmy relaxed instantly. They laughed. They talked. About school. About life. About everything they never said. Then Jimmy took a deep breath. I like you, Kendra, he said. For years. I just never said anything. Kendra smiled, gentle and understanding. I noticed, she said. I always wondered why you never spoke to me. They both smiled. Dating felt easy for Jimmy and Kendra. It flowed naturally. They moved with intention. Through luxury dinners, long conversations, and deep understanding. 2 years later, they stood at their wedding. Jimmy wore a tailored cream tuxedo. Kendra wore an elegant white gown. Her hair styled beautifully, her accessories glowing. As they exchanged their marriage vows, Jimmy understood something simple and powerful. That some love stories don't begin loudly. Some begin in silence and wait for courage. He loved her quietly. He waited. And when the time was right, love finally heard him. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories coming up on this channel.